All right, let's talk about AI and finance. Now, you might hear AI and think about science fiction, but the reality is it's already here. And it's running a huge part of our financial world completely behind the scenes. It's making enormous decisions every single second. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see what's really going on.
I mean, really think about that for a second. You get that text message from your bank about a weird purchase, and it happens almost instantly. How? It's definitely not some poor guy in a cubicle watching every transaction in the world. Nope, that's AI. And by the time we're done here, you'll get exactly how that little piece of magic works. But, before we jump into the solution, we've got to understand the problems. For years, the financial industry was up against these massive challenges that were just getting bigger, faster, and more complex. They were pushing the absolute limits of what people could handle on their own. Frankly, they were hitting a wall. Okay, so problem number one was and still is seriously sophisticated fraud. We're talking about criminal networks that are always coming up with new, clever ways to steal money. Their schemes got so complex that the old school security systems, the ones that just followed a simple list of rules, were just completely outmatched. And then you had the speed problem. Or, the lack of it. Remember applying for a loan? It used to mean literally stacks of paper and then just waiting. Days, sometimes weeks, for a person to go through it all. In the world we live in now, a world that moves at the speed of data, this was becoming a huge bottleneck. And finally, there's just the human factor. Look, whether it's a trader making a call in a split second or a loan officer looking at an application, people make mistakes. We're just not always consistent. And even more importantly, we all have unintentional biases that can creep in and lead to decisions that are, well, just not fair. So, you've got these huge problems, right? Finance needed a hero. And that hero, you guessed it, turned out to be AI. So let's get into the good stuff and look at how its superpowers are being used to tackle these exact issues head on. So when we talk about fraud detection, we're not talking about a system that just checks if the CVV code is right. No way. We're talking about an AI that can analyze hundreds of different data points for every single transaction, all in the blink of an eye, to catch crooks the moment they make a move. And look, this isn't just some theory. Let's take a look at a real-world giant, JPMorgan Chase. They're one of the biggest banks on Earth, which means they are on the front lines of this fight, and they have gone all in on using AI. What's just wild is how fast this all happens. The literal instant you tap your card, the AI is looking at your location, what kind of device you're using, your normal spending patterns, the store's risk level, dozens of things. It creates a fraud score in milliseconds and bam, decision made. It's just unbelievably fast. But here's the really important part. It's not just about stopping bad guys. It's about not bothering you. By using AI, Chase cut down on those super annoying moments when your card gets declined for no reason, those false positives, by a massive 60%. That just makes life smoother for all of us. And what about the money? Well, their AI system stops about $150 million in fraud every single year. That isn't just a small improvement. It's a total game changer for keeping the entire financial system safe. And its power goes way beyond security. Think about getting a loan. Instead of just looking at an old-school credit score, AI can analyze thousands of data points. It can see your regular income, if you pay your utility bills on time, things that give a much fuller picture. This can actually open up doors for people who were unfairly shut out by the old system. So all of this might sound a bit like magic, right? But it's not. It's technology, and it's something we can actually wrap our heads around. So let's demystify it a bit and see how the AI is actually making these incredible calls. Okay, so the core of everything is this thing called a model. The easiest way to think about it is that the model is the AI's brain. But it's a brain you don't program with rules. Instead, you feed it just insane amounts of data, and it literally teaches itself to see the patterns, like the tiny, subtle differences between a real purchase and a fake one. Now, these models basically learn in two main ways. The most common is supervised learning. It's pretty much like studying for a test when you already have the answer key. You show the AI millions of old transactions that are already labeled fraud or not fraud. It just learns what fraud looks like. Then there's unsupervised learning, which is way cooler. It's like being a detective. You just dump a mountain of data in front of the AI and say, "Tell me if you find anything weird." This is amazing for catching brand new types of fraud that have never been seen before, because it spots things that just don't fit the pattern. And what keeps these models going? Data. Just unbelievable amounts of it. Of course, there's transaction data and stock market data, but it also uses what we call alternative data, things like the general feeling of news articles, or even satellite photos of retail parking lots to predict earnings. The AI pulls all of this together to build this incredibly detailed, rich picture of what's happening.
So yeah, it's obvious that AI is an incredibly powerful tool, but we all know that with great power comes great risks. This is not some perfect, magical solution, and we really have to be honest and clear about the challenges that it brings to the table.
Putting this tech into action is really, really hard. Banks have to deal with all these complex data privacy laws. They have to worry constantly about fairness and bias. A lot of the time, they're trying to plug these futuristic AI systems into banking mainframes that are decades old. And on top of all of that, there just aren't enough people with the skills to build and run these things.
But maybe the biggest challenge of all is a moral one. This quote right here really nails it. If the data we feed the AI is based on a biased past, like unfair lending practices from decades ago, the AI will learn those biases. And it won't just copy them, it could actually make them worse, basically creating a super efficient machine for discrimination. But even with all these risks, this revolution is really just getting started. The next wave is already rolling in. AI is now being used to guide what's called ESG, or ethical investing. It's creating banking experiences that are hyper-personalized to you. And get this, some firms are already looking at how to pair AI with quantum computing to solve problems we can barely even imagine right now. Which really leaves us with one last massive question to think about. In this new world we're building, if an algorithm denies you a loan, who's responsible? Is it the bank that bought the system? The programmer who wrote the code? Or is it the algorithm itself? That's a question we're all going to have to figure out, and soon.